Thank you for coming. I am Bo Durachik, Regional Sales Manager from Richter & Schnell, and we've invited you here today, not necessarily for try to sell you a planter, but to think about things a little bit differently, perhaps in a way that we haven't done before. How many of us have done a farming practice on our farm like Dad did, or Grandpa, right? If you're not raising your hand, you're probably lying, right? At some time in Dad or Grandpa's life, they were the innovators, right? They had the new ideas. Because life is the way it is, right? We don't like change, so we tend to keep doing the things that we've done all the time. But there is time for change. There is time for different thoughts. So the way Dad did it isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because has the price of land gone up or down? Land rent has gone up. Seed, equipment has all gone up. Commodities, milk price, seem to go down. Planting windows, they're not getting any longer, are they? They're getting shorter. And finally, the reason why we have you here is to help in your process to get to that next bushel or ton per acre. And I'd like to start by showing you a couple of little videos that will kind of be fun, and then getting a little bit more serious at the end. So if we can zoom in on the videos. Here we're going way back to our 2 horsepowers. And I've taken the sound out of the videos to show you, and the rest of your senses will pick up on some of the other things that you're seeing there. Here you can see, if you look very closely, there's the curved track they have set up for the horses to follow. Supposed to laugh. Come on, guys. Help me out here. And also, they're going acrossways to the tillage, so the row units are possibly moving a little bit. And if you look very closely, the horses, right about here, they see something or whatever, and they start going off path, and he's crabby, and he's trying to get them back on there. Come on, girls. You can see here, it's a little harder to back a planter in the corner with horses. And notice his guidance is out to the outside of the field. Watch out for telephone poles. And also, he's doing his headlands last. Something to think about there for later. Here we have a 1947 John Deere G with a 1240 corn planter. You'll take a note there again, the curve track situation they have set. And yes, I can assure you it's a Johnny Popper. It's going putt, 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 putt. Again, I want your senses to pick up the rest of the things. Again, the cross tillage. And you'll notice that the steering sensor there and the steering wheel is a little bit loose, needs to be replaced. There's a lot of overcorrecting. Take a look at those roll units. Technology at its finest. Next here we have the introduction of some hydraulics. And you're going to love this next bit here. Farmer's going to jump off the tractor and go reset his implement guidance. Try to do that a few times a day, right? Get out of the tractor. Next video, you'll notice the tractor getting up to speed. You'll also notice the singulation of the planter going up to 99.2% at 9.2 miles an hour. So we've graduated a little bit here, technology-wise. I'd like you to watch very closely here the acceleration of this ExactEmerge planter with our GoPro Hero 5 camera in place. Watch how smooth the hydraulic downforce is at 9 miles an hour. This customer bought this planter not to go fast, but for the exact seed placement. But in this particular field, Mom called, said lunch was ready, and this is what you get. All right, time for some introductions. When you walked in this morning, you met our marketing team of Nicole Glazinski and Heather Moss. Give them a round of applause for putting everything all together here. And if I could have our presenters come forward when I call your name. Joe Sinkula and Devin Van Camp, come on up. Joe Shapansky and Eric Redeker. Matt Hatcher and Riley Bricko. These will be your team of presenters today. Let's give them a round of applause. I've seen the presentations, and they are awesome, and they are going to shed us a lot of light on how to gain efficiencies in the field, expand our horizons on different ways of planting, trying to see some profit out of that. And by doing this, we hopefully won't have to go off of the Farmer's Almanac on how to get everything planted in a year, right? We got to be better at it and get things accomplished in a timely manner.
I want to talk a little bit about myself, just for those that don't know me. Joe Sinkula, Integrated Solutions Manager here at Research Schnell. Been involved with precision ag since 2011. Been at Research Schnell since 2011, minus we'll call it a 2-year sabbatical to learn about the other side and realize what I was missing and appreciate coming back over here. Grew up on a family farm near Kewanee. I was joking with Paul Sturgis a little earlier today about some of the crazy stuff we did on planting. I was telling him we had a 6-row planter, and the way that you knew you're supposed to have flags to know if the chains broke. Well, the flags had all been busted off, so then you just had the depths. And so what you'd find out is, oh crap, 5 of the rows are going down and 1 isn't. But by the time you noticed it, who knows how long you were planting, so you'd have to walk back, find the chain. And then if you don't want Dad to kick your butt when you got home, you go put the chain on and take off all the other 5 chains and try to plant those rows before anybody really caught. Or fertilizer, dry fertilizer. I remember times coming there to fill up, and we had 3 metal boxes on there, and we got bulk fertilizer. We didn't have bags, but you had to basically came out of a gravity box in a pail. So we had to basically pail it into the planter. So if you'd find that one of the fertilizers weren't quite empty, I wasn't going to pail that again. So those 2 rows for however long one fertilizer went just didn't get covered. So I think we're a little more advanced today than those days back then. You know, that's not all that long ago. That would have been 25 years ago. I guess I'm pretty old, but that is 25 years ago. It's a long time ago, but it's not forever. And then I got a family picture up there, married to Stacy, and I got my son Isaac and daughter Morgan, who are involved in every sport under the sun. If you can shoot it or throw it, they do it. So that's what keeps me on my toes on the weekends. So aspire to be best in class. Bo kind of kicked us off this morning. Talked about where commodity prices are at, right? As far as you read, right, this is kind of a new normal. I don't think we're really seeing that this is truly a trough. As much as more and more you read about it, this is going to become a new normal. 350 corn is a good target. So how do we aspire to be best in class? How do we make sure we're part of the top 10 or 20% at all times? Because if we're aspiring to be best in class, we're going to make it through. So best in class, this came from a presentation by Dr. Bolgi from Purdue University, has these 8 characteristics of a best-in-class operation. So I'm going to talk about today a little bit is focusing on execution and then simplification and automation. So I got 3 main takeaways. We're going to focus on how we make sure we get setup files to our equipment. How doing something as simple as making sure all the field names and product names are in our equipment pre-season, how that can actually impact yields at the end of the year. Talking about using interior boundaries for tillage and planting. Many of us have displays. Many of us have boundaries in those displays. How many are actually using those interior boundaries? We're going to talk about that, why we'd want to do that. And then lastly, because I'm up here and I have a microphone, I'm going to get on my soapbox and talk about collecting data. So what is 3 minutes? You're going to hear this theme from all three presenters. What does 3 minutes represent on your farm? How about the time it takes to make a cup of coffee? Unless you got one of those darn Keurigs, then it's like 5 minutes, even though they say it's going to take 2. How about to make a phone call in season and try to explain to somebody how to get directions and turn by the blue house that burnt down 26 years ago when I was in high school? How many people got directions like that to a field before? Or do you remember when so-and-so lived at that house? How about the time it takes to type in the correct documentation into your planter monitor? And I've got a little video here. Time it takes to figure out how to correctly spell Shapansky in the monitor. So I don't know if it shows up in there, but I kind of, you start typing, and then, of course, you got your sprayer operator, your tillage operator, and your planter operator. They all spell it differently, right? So we backed up a couple times, and here we just said, screw it. It sounds like Shapansky, so I'm going to spell it this way. Right? Have we all been there, done that in the monitor? Did you know that 3 minutes is what it takes to plant 1 acre with your 12-row planter at 5 miles an hour? Or 1 1/3 acres with a 16-row planter? Or 2 acres with a 24-row planter? So as you're sitting there and you're waiting for a tender truck, or you're sitting there typing in your setup data or talking on the phone to somebody who doesn't know how to get to the field that you're at, every time 3 minutes goes by, think about that. That's another acre. There went another acre. Last spring, we had a big rain event, right? May 22nd-ish. Got a big rain event. I was on one farm, 10 bushel difference between what they got planted before May 22nd and what had to get planted after Memorial Day. So you start talking that 1 acre, if I lost 10 bushels at $3 a bushel, that 1 acre just cost me, or that 3 minutes just cost me $30 if I didn't get that acre done before the rain came. So start thinking about that when you're sitting there waiting. These minutes that are ticking by during our planting season, they really do start to add up. So I have an activity. I've already selected 2 volunteers. And what we're going to do is we've got 3 displays set up over there. Devin's going to help us out with this. And we're going to have a camera so you guys could see on the presentation here. So the first session here, these are our client, our farm, and our field. 2 of the displays, so I got a Gen 4, the newest John Deere display that's got all the setup data in it. Then I've got 2 2630s, one that's got it all set up, and one has all the equipment dimensions in it. But Colin is going to get to go and try to type in Ratajczyk, Nevada 008. And I'm calling you on the phone. You don't get to see this, right? How many times are we in the field and you're like, well, how do I spell this? And you're trying to explain it over the phone. So if you guys want to head over to the little corner there, Adam here is going to be helping out as well. And then Devin, you're going to learn about the My Jobs in the next session. So Devin's actually got My Jobs where I actually have all the information pre-entered that shows up on his iPad of what I want him to do. So here we're planning before the season starts to make sure everybody knows what they need to do in what field, what hybrids we plan on planting, what fertilizers we plan on putting down. So you guys ready to get started over there? Yeah. All righty. Yep, ready, go. So Colin, do you remember the field name? How about the varieties? Maybe Devin can help you out when he's all done. Yep. And then field 8. Because I just had to stop my tillage now, right? Because I got to help them figure out how to spell this field. Well, I'm probably switching the field on my monitor to figure out how to spell Ratajczyk out. And I can't till without guidance. That'd be like sacrilegious, I think, so. All right, so Devin's done. I hear lots of typing going on over there, Colin. So we're doing planting. 2 fertilizers. We're doing in-furrow and pop-up, or pop-up in-furrow, sorry, and 28% 2x2, and then we're doing a split planter because we want to compare 2 hybrids, because our DeKalb dealer came over and said he's got the best thing ever. It blew all the university research away on that beautiful sand in central Wisconsin. You guys are up to 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Timing you. How many of you have been gone to the field where you've been told to go plant and you're ripping the tag off the bag to try to figure out what to type in the monitor? What was that, Devin? Did you get the field name in at least, Colin? Yeah. We're doing variety DKC 5883 and then 5883-VT3. But make sure you type it exactly the same as Adam, because if you type it different, those are 2 different products, right? All right, you guys can come over here. We're at 3 minutes. Give them a round of applause, our volunteers. So I kind of set Colin up to fail, but how many of us set our operators up to fail by not giving them all the information and trying to call you, figure out how to enter all that in? So take the time, create the setup files, create everything in the monitors before the season starts. We've got some time now. Ground's going to be frozen, it looks like, at least for another 10 days according to the weather channel. So, and then looking at the forecast, it's going to be frozen a little while after that. So we've got some time now. I know our favorite thing is not sitting in an office, but you probably already have all your seed purchased, right? I would hope. So you know what varieties you're going to be planting, unless you have a dramatic weather event. So get those setup files into the monitor. Another things that we can do to focus on 3 minutes. How about guidance lines? How many times are we going in the field and we're trying to figure out what guidance line to use, because there's 12 in the monitor, all named 1, 1A, 11111, 1C, and you're like, oh crap, what is the right guidance line to use? Screw it, I'm just going to create another new guidance line for this year, right? So within the John Deere Operations Center, which is a free tool, if you have your boundaries out there, you could create your guidance lines, and you can have it set so it's exactly 40 feet off your boundary or 20 feet, whatever width you want. So that first guidance line pass, you can come right into that field, grab that line, and go. It's all set again for your operators. And you can actually name the guidance lines whatever you want. So I'd recommend naming it Plant or Plant 2018 or something that actually gives your operators the idea so they know what they need. When we start talking about tillage, we can then put that line in our tillage tractor. So our last pass for the vertical till tool, our field cultivator, we're actually going at the exact same heading that planter is going. We're not crossing lines with our planter. You guys noticed that? Bull mentioned that already during his video. Again, save 3 minutes. What do you guys notice about this planter, speaking of tillage? I kind of got it on a loop here. You can see the tillage was done at a 90-degree angle. How many here do this on their farm? You guys are all liars, I think. Most of you are liars, unless you're doing no-till. I can guarantee you guys are doing it on probably 10% of your farm. 40 acres, 80-foot headland. That's a decent amount of space there, right? 9 acres of that 40 acres is headlands on an 80-foot headland. Works out to 22% of the field. It might not look like it, but let's how about put all the lines on 2 sides. Now let's put those headlands all on one side. Now do you see that 20% of your field, that's headlands? And you could say, but Joe, I only till on one headland, right? I only turn on one headland. 11% of the field is your top and bottom headland. So how many of you are doing your primary tillage right to the tight end of the field because you want to minimize the primary tillage headland passes? How many times is your planter running across that primary tillage or secondary tillage on those headlands 90 degrees to your tillage and is riding like crap across that area? So most of us that have guidance in our monitors, we have the ability, or sorry, another replay of the video. So you are doing this to 10%. We do have the ability to add interior boundaries in our monitor. It may not raise the implement automatically, but if you have our dimensions in there correct, we'll sure know where to lift up, right? So we can come in and do our headlands then exactly where we want our planter boundary to be. SF1 is going to be okay, right? If we're off by 5 feet one way or the other, not a big difference. We're still quite a bit better than what we're doing today. We can automate this for those that have new enough field cultivators, or we can retrofit older ones with John Deere's TrueSet. TrueSet allows us to run prescription tillage. So we can actually create a prescription out on the operations center. When we come into the headland, it'll automatically raise that implement out of the ground. Your operator does nothing. They just turn. And if you have a Gen 4 now starting this year, you don't even have to turn. It'll just turn for you. It'll raise it up, turn it, drop it back down, all based off of those interior boundaries. So primary tillage is where we're seeing this. A lot of times our secondary tillage will mask this, but you know it when you're riding in that planter and you're going over that deep ripped ground, right? For those that have been in the planter, you've all felt it. So now it's audience interaction time. So why do we plant headlands first? Everybody does it, right? I don't think I've seen only maybe 1 or 2 farmers ever not plant them first. You guys up here?
A couple years back, I planted the headlands last, but the boundaries have to be right on.
Yep, the boundaries have to be right. Is it because we've always done it that way? Because when we had markers, that's the only way we knew where to start, right? With section control now, we can work off those boundaries. So we start thinking about compaction. So we start talking, when I first put this presentation together, it was like an hour and a half long, and they told me I had to get it down to 30 minutes for you guys, but I had like a 40-minute rotation on compaction. Surface compaction versus subsurface, but you look at surface compaction. So basically, we just drove over what we planted. 30 to 60% yield loss on that footprint of what we just drove over with our tractor. So how much do you drive over an average headland, right? So we said it's 20% of the field, but we're not driving over the entire headland. I hope we're not, at least. So if you look at this picture, I've got a 12-row planter behind a 7R with 18 4s on it. So if we look at a 20-foot straight pulling in and do a perfect 30-foot arc, because everybody could do a perfect 30-foot arc on the headlands to minimize passes, and then 20 feet back into the row. We look at 18.4 times 4 tires, plus our 2 tires on the planter. I'm not even factoring in the front tires on the turn, things like that. That's 7.5 feet of coverage every time we pull into the headland from there. We do 40 feet. The 20 feet in and out means 300 feet is just the 20 feet in and out of each pass. We start doing some fancy math here, and we bring in some pi for our radius. We get another 355 feet is covered with our turn. So every turn, we're actually compacting 655 square feet. Doesn't sound like much, right? Take that 44 passes in a quarter-mile wide field. Take those 44 times 655 is almost 29,000 square feet, or 2/3 of an acre. 2/3 of an acre divided by 40 is nearly 2% of the field you're driving over. So at that 1.7% at $3 corn represents $2.30 per acre yield loss, and that's going at that 30% yield loss of 150 bushels per acre. So if your yields are higher or lower, if you're dry or wet, of course, that's going to factor into there. Some assumptions that you guys can turn a perfect 30-foot circle. You never need to get seed or go to the tender or ever drive on your headland. And then all sides of your fields are perfectly straight and you never end up on the wrong end of the field, right? Sounds like a Kiwani field. Perfect, right? What I grew up with. Some other benefits of doing your headlands last. You could do your seed check sooner. So Paul's our agronomist in this booth, or in this session, right? Do you recommend your guys get out and check seed on the headlands on the first pass?
They never do.
No, but you check it in the field, right? You don't want to check out on the headlands where you might have by the tree line, things like that. You want to check in the field. Well, I just said that your headlands are 25 or 24% of your field. So you've already planted 24% of your field before you've checked your seed. If you do it on that first pass of every field. So by doing your headlands last, check your seed sooner. Avoid row units disturbing seed trenches. Oops, that didn't work. So you can see in that picture there, do you see where the row units went through? I mean, the section control looks like it's working perfectly, but you can see where the row units went through. There's stalks missing. So our row unit was disturbing that seed trench, prevented stuff from growing. And then for those that do soybeans, we've seen some benefits of doing the headlands last. It'll actually level some of the berms and the turning on the headlands. The row units themselves will do some leveling action. Some considerations. This does not alleviate long-term compaction or deep compaction. This is just surface compaction. So you're still going to see some yield loss from your deep compaction, from every other pass across the field. How good are your boundaries? $1.50 per acre is what we charge for boundaries, so you're looking at a payback of less than a year. Or we have these beautiful 2 gators here. Bring those home. Do it yourself. They actually can come Green Star ready now. So all you got to do is throw your receiver, your RTK receiver on there. Or maybe this year, if you're running off of SF3 or RTK or something similar, maybe plant your outside headland first, and then you'll be able to see if there's a difference. Record that boundary while you do your outside headland, plant the inside, then plant your second headland pass at the end. You'll be able to see side by side then, right on your headlands, what's doing. Are your boundaries consistent? And you made up the point there. So one of the challenges with this is if you have dad or grandpa get in the 9R and says, I pay for taxes all the way to the fence line, and damn it, I'm going to take the field cultivator right tight to the fence line this year, regardless of how many stones I pull back into the field, I'm going to do it, right? If you're doing that, you get inconsistent boundaries, regardless if they went 4 feet wider this year, your planter is going to go off of whatever you recorded for the boundary. So it is a challenge of doing it. How good is your correction signal? We talked about that. If you're running off SF1, it's going to be very difficult to do this. But maybe if you're looking for that reason to upgrade from a Starfire 3000 to a 6000 to get SF3, plus or minus 1 inch or 1.5 inch, or go all the way to RTK, plus or minus 1 inch, maybe this is the reason to do that. Section control, it will make this a lot easier, but again, it's truly not required because if you're not using it before, if you know exactly where the headlands are going to be with that yellow line on your screen, you can still raise and lower it just like you did before. And then in the sessions today, you're going to hear a lot about doing on-farm trials. So I encourage you to do some on your farm. If you don't want to do the whole farm, you think I'm full of shit, pardon my French, try it on your farm. Prove me wrong. I think you're going to be surprised with what you see. Especially if we have another spring like last year where it was dry in the top 2 inches and sopping wet underneath. So being best in class, we talked about execution, right? Making sure we have all of our, doing our boundaries last, focus on making sure we're efficient as we can in the field. Simplification, automation, maybe looking at true set or section control. Headland turn automation we can now do, iTech Pro, do those headlands all automatically for you. How about logistics management, managing operating risks? We got a couple more things here to talk about. Anybody here read Howard Buffett's book, 40 Chances? Anybody? Anybody here read books? Operators manuals? Well, that's just me too, okay. It's a great book if you ever get a chance. So Howard Buffett is the son of philanthropist and famous investor Warren Buffett. He actually farms down by Assumption, Illinois. He wrote a book, it's really focused on hunger in the world. But in there's a great line. It's each of us has about 40 chances to accomplish our goals in life. I learned this first through agriculture because all farmers can expect to have 40 growing seasons, giving them just 40 chances to improve on every harvest. For you guys that are dairy farmers, if we don't collect good data from our cows at this milking, how long do we have to wait to get another one? 8 hours, right? If we're milking 3 times a day. 8 hours later, they're going to come through the parlor. We'll get them next time, right? If you miss your planting data because you don't have good setup data and you're like, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to waste the time on that. How long till we can collect good planting data again? Another year, right? 12 months. 3 years minimum, 5 years expected good data to be able to make decisions off of data. So the later we delay collecting good data, the later it's going to get before we can actually start to collect or start analyzing that data. So I was going to make a soapbox to have me stand on here, but as I mentioned earlier, my kids are involved in every sport under the sun, so that kind of takes my priority right now. So everybody right now is looking for that easy button, right? I want Encirca or Climate Corp to come out and tell me exactly how much nitrogen to put down, when to put it down, right? They're working very hard on that based on weather modeling and things like that. I know there's a long way to go on that, right? But they're trying to do that. But guess what? If you get the easy button from them, who else also has the easy button? Everybody else. So there is no easy button. We got to collect data now. We got to start collecting that data. And then my challenge to you is, this was a great quote. I couldn't sleep last night, and I added this last minute. But Dan Freeberg's the CEO of Premier Cropping down in Iowa. They basically look at data. That's what he focuses on for his company. But the hard part of transitioning to data-driven decisions isn't when data supports what you already believe to be true, right? We have that gut instinct, and the data says, you know what, you were right, and we all feel great. The challenge part is when the data analysis challenges what we think we already know. I've worked with a lot of you in here. I've worked with a lot of farms. Some of the biggest challenges I see is we already do it the right way. The data says we do it the right way. And I'm saying, well, here's data saying where you can improve. Look at that data. Don't ignore it. Look at that data where we can improve. Focus on logistics if you can. Focus on agronomy. Right now, logistics is kind of the forgotten stepchild. But how much of our farms could improve by improved logistics? How many times do we have people in the wrong field? Last year, out on a farm, we hear over the radio somebody explaining how to get to a field. Hour later, we were still out on the farm working. The guy says, I'm done with the field, and the other guy gets on the radio, well, I don't see you. He'd done the neighbor's field across the road. Think of what that costs to run a 9R with a 53-foot field cultivator for over an hour in that field. Idle time. How many of you have JD Link on your equipment? I know there should be some hands going up. How many have actually ever been to the JD Link website to look at idle time on their farm? So Kurt, putting you on the spot. Your customer has a tractor with 4,000 hours on it. 25% of them were idle, so it's only got 3,000 work hours. The other 1,000 were just idle. Do you discount that tractor on trade-in value based off of 3,000 or 4,000? Off the 4,000, right? Because to be honest, on these new tractors, that 1,000 hours of idle time is harder on it than the actual work time in the field. So we look at that $50 an hour. You look at those 3 minutes, I'm going to go to $60 an hour to make my math easy. $60 an hour, what does that 3 minutes cost in idle time on that tractor as I'm sitting there waiting, typing things into my monitor? Start thinking about the numbers. It really starts to add up. Our fleet average for sprayers, I know Shapansky's in the other room, he'll talk about this. Our fleet average for sprayers is just short of 40%. 40% of all the hours on our sprayers as a company that we've ever sold is idle. That's a lot of hours. Best in class in the mid-20s. So you got guys out there, and I've seen sprayers that have darn near 50% of the runtime on them is idle. We need to be focusing on these little things. We got to get those hours down. Sorry, sales, don't listen to that, because then you guys can keep your tractors for a year longer, right? Or 2 years longer. So logistics collection tools, we have the My Jobs. You guys are going to hear that. The Research Schnell app is through our Precision Farming Solutions platform. You can do manual data logging with that. We can record data with our monitor. Complete automation comes with JD Link. And then Leaf, if you get a chance, talk to Devin over at the booth during the trade show about Leaf. We're pretty excited about this tool. 100% automated data collection, with the exception of the operator has to touch their name on an iPad because the FDA doesn't allow us to chip your operators yet. If we could chip them with an RFID tag, then we're a little closer. But for now, they still got to tell the iPad in the cab. So hopefully you got 3 takeaways from here. Get those setup files built now. Get them into the equipment before the season. Think about using interior boundaries for tillage and planting. And then take the time, collect good data now. We're running out of time. We're running out of our 40 chances to collect good data.
Just to do a quick recap of the last 2.5 hours or so. In one of our breakout sessions, Matt Hatcher talked about do on-farm trials on your farm. Those are the places where you will understand what works on your property, your ground, and in your conditions. Riley talked about the Richter & Schnell has a third-party programs to create profit and loss maps on your farm again. So again, working with the things that make your farm work well. Joe Sinkula talked about how much you can profit and how much you can plant in 3 minutes, how important it can be, and what it costs you. Also planting the headlands last and using technology to decrease compaction. And also he had 40 chances in life to get your crop planted right. 40 chances. If you think about it, it's not very many times. Also, create your planting team by Joe Sapansky. $11,000 to $24,000 of investment per hour when you're planting. Also making sure your planter is ready. Seems quite trivial, right? Just make sure that planter is ready to go when it's time to go. Delayed planting in mid-May costs 4 bushel a day. And then recapping Eric's, who's using the apps to be more efficient when planting. And this is your time on your farm to be innovative, right? We talked about dads and grandpas being innovative sometime in their lifetime. It's now your time to take the next step. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Sinkula and our group of agronomists. Thank you.
Sorry. Have the 3 agronomists come up, and then we'll kind of introduce them one by one. And depending where you sit is what mic you get. So. Middle. Left. All right, so we've asked these 3 agronomists to come up. Do you guys sell any seed? Independent, right? So the idea was to have 3 independent agronomists up here kind of talk about what they've seen. Basically open forum style. So, try to be nice to these guys, but it is open forum. So if you heard something this morning you want to question them on, heard something else over the winter, hey, what did you guys see last year? What can I do on my farm? Now's your chance to kind of ask questions. So to ask a question, just raise your hand, and we've got Steve Boehm over on stage right, your left, and Tom Vandekorpet is up here. Raise your hand, they'll come around so you can ask into the mic so they can all hear up here. And to kind of get started, I'm going to have them each introduce themselves and just kind of talk about a funny story. For those who heard about my story planting, growing up, I'm sure they've all run into similar type situations working with customers. So start with you, Nate, on the end there. I guess if you introduce yourself and kind of talk about interesting story, and then kind of lead into how you work with your growers. We start talking about collecting data, things like that before the season, how you work with your growers before the season.
My name is Nathan Casper. I work with In-Depth Agronomy. We're an independent consulting company. We work with our growers on just profit management, in-season crop consulting, precision ag, do nutrient management plans, definitely do in-season calibration with planters. It's kind of been just a good day today just to go over each of these things very meticulously and closely. thinking about, funny stories for planter issues. I was thinking about as a kid, I'd walk out of the house, I'd see my dad cutting grass, and all of a sudden, you'd realize, hey, Dad, you're not cutting any grass, and kind of made me think of the same thing. We get tired, we get fatigued. I get it. It happens to everyone. And just like Dad, forgot to turn on the PTO and he was covering ground, but he wasn't cutting any grass. That happens in season. And we're all going to make mistakes, but the quicker we realize we made a mistake, the quicker we can go back and catch it. And when you see, a miss in a field on a row, or when you see, there's a strip out there that wasn't planted, a lot of times the planter's in the shed and cleaned up, and the operator's like, well, why are you letting me know now? A really good way to get around that has been, when you're done, before the planter goes away for the season, look at your as planted maps. And by doing that, we catch those and we can still go back and fix that. And a lot of times, across 1,000 acres, you can have a couple acres of strips, and rather than going out there and having a delay, of 1 or 2 crop stages, you can get that done quicker. What was the other question, Joe, that you wanted?
How you guys work with the growers leading up to the growing season. So before the planter even goes out of the shed, how you work with them to kind of make sure that technology is all ready to go, or the setup data, stuff like that, prescriptions.
So you guys heard this morning, 3 minutes just walking around the planter, and just about every planter, no matter how good a shape it's in, has something that needs to be tweaked a little bit, room for improvement. And with my clients, I really try and get them out there early April. It's too early to plant, but just take 1 or 2 passes in the field, and have someone follow behind. It's amazing from the tractor cab, you can't catch all this stuff, but if you have someone following behind in an ATV and just watching each roll unit, watching the clutches, watching the double disc openers and closing wheels, it's amazing how much of that you can catch. If you're doing that on April 28th or May 1st, guys aren't going to be very patient to take it back to the shop and fix those things. They're just going to want to roll. But it's amazing what you can catch following behind the planter, what you can't see in the tractor cab.
All right, thank you. So Paul, kind of the same to you. If you want to do an introduction and then kind of a humorous story, and then also kind of what you kind of try to do pre-season to make sure your customers have a successful plant.
All right. Hear me? Here we go. Thanks, Joe. My name is Paul Sturgis. I'm the Wisconsin Agronomy Manager for Crop IMS. Crop IMS is somewhat of a Midwest-wide company. We've got agronomy people in Western Kentucky, Central Illinois, and here in Wisconsin. We do pretty much similar to what Nathan does, full-service agronomy when it comes to consulting. Nutrient management planning is a heavy emphasis for us, working with large dairies. Crop scouting, soil sampling, and a lot of data management, working with all this precision data. You guys are all collecting mounds and mounds of data, and a lot of times it's all sitting there and you're wondering what to do with it. So we really try to help growers, decipher what is this data really trying to tell us. So something that we're going to really, we try to get the guys, get that planter out early, at least get it out in the yard, try to start things up, get things going. And like Nathan said, if you can walk around that planter or follow it in the field a little bit, it can tell you a lot of things well before that planting season. Because like you said, it's May 5th up by us, and we need to roll. We need to roll fast. And we've made a real effort the last few years in particular is to try to get that demonstration this morning in this room of trying to set monitors up is really eye-opening, and I wish I could do that with all my growers, because it only takes just a couple of minutes, but it is valuable time. And if we can have that stuff set up ahead of time, that's what we really tried to do the last few years, is help growers get those monitors set up. If we're doing prescription planting, we've got all them prescriptions already done, hopefully this time of the year, or we're finishing them up, getting them in the monitors. And one thing we're gonna kind of test run with a couple of our growers this year is using Operations Center to help load that information for them through Operations Center so they can, go right to the planter and be ready so that they're not struggling, sitting there wasting 2, 3, 4, 10 minutes. I've had growers say too, I don't want to mess with this stuff because it takes too long. Well, you go back and you look at those monitors, and they got 5 years of stuff sitting in those monitors. They're not cleaned up. Of course, they're going to slow down. And the one story I've got, unfortunately, Joe, it's not a humorous story, but it really emphasizes, today a little bit, is working with a 15,000 acre grower in southern Wisconsin. 15,000 acres of corn they're planting, 5 corn planters, and I will say it was a different color. I will emphasize that a little bit. And they were all set up to do wireless transfer and all this stuff. So traditionally they had at least had notepads in the planters. Guys would write down what they planted where, when they planted it, some of those notes and conditions. None of that stuff. They relied entirely on that system, and unfortunately they get all the way done planting 15,000 acres and they had no information. There was a snafu in the system. So even if you're using wireless transfer, and I really encourage, because I think it's a really neat way to get it done, check it once in a great while as you're going, because anything can break. There's no perfect system out there, but at least even after that first day of planting, go, if you're using operations, go in there and make sure your data is there, because they just waited and then they had 15,000 acres of corn, 12 corn hybrids with 3 different companies, and we didn't know what was planted where. We lost a whole year's worth of information in that regard. So just check periodically and make sure everything, not only the corn planter, but your data transfer systems too. So.
All right, thanks, Paul. Bill, up to you.
My name is Bill Schomburg. I'm with Tillage Agronomy. We work in northeast Wisconsin with our dairy and cash cropper people. And I guess similar things as these guys have said: nutrient management planning, a lot of soil testing, a lot of government plan writing, those kinds of things that get tedious to you as well as to us, I'm sure, with regulation and everything. The fun stuff is variety selection, fertilizer recommendations. We'll help our growers with somewhat purchasing of fertilizers, trying to decipher the codes between the different brands of fertilizers, the different products, and those kinds of things. Same with chemicals. We do a lot with VRT planting, fertilizer, that kind of stuff as well. My funny story is funny a little bit, but depressing at the same time. I get a text message from a grower. I just looked it up this morning to make sure I was right. It was May 9th of last year, so by no means late, by no means early. And he said, read something to the effect of, I'm either the dumbest person on the face of the earth or I'm a genius for starting to plant today. And I thought, well, it's May 9th. Why are you either, And texted back and he said, well, there's some wetter spots in the field and the closing wheels are not closing correctly. I thought, okay, what are we going to run into when we get back around to check that next week? It was about a 50-acre field. It was the best field they had the previous year, so I thought, it can't be too bad, right? It was the highest producing field they had. Well, I got around to looking at that field that following week when I was there, and about 50% of the field did not close, and there was a good quarter to a half-inch gap. You could see the seed clear as day. You could tell right where the refuge seed was, different color, all that fun stuff. And I thought, oh my Lord, what do we got going here? So, humorous part is he's thinking he's either a genius or an idiot, and turned out more on the latter side of it. So that story kind of leads to, this morning we're talking about get out there, get planting, the time we're losing, those kinds of things, but also step back and look at field conditions too, to make sure, we're doing the right thing. Could we pick a different field? There's apps and all this other stuff to look at rainfall to see maybe another part of my farm didn't get as much rain. Let's go to that field today. The good part about that field that I just talked about is with all the rain we had last year, every seed germinated, even the stuff that didn't close. You could see it germinate right through. It just sat in water the whole time. So he got lucky in that sense that we had that much rain. It didn't yield, of course, what it did the previous year because of that. But he was worried that he'd have a replant situation. And last year we didn't have time for replant situations. We had one chance to plant it. So that's my story, Joe.
All right, so open it up to questions from you guys based on either, like I said, anything you came with, anything you heard this morning. Don't all speak at once. We only got 2 microphones, so. Oh, we got one over here. Steve?
With all this data that you guys are collecting, is it adding any value to the land if you're renting the ground or the land that you own?
I think the biggest thing is we're collecting it. We need to take it and use it. And I've had instances where I've ran into growers that the landowner wanted to raise the rent, and the grower could show, here's my yield, here's my inputs, all that kind of stuff. Show why they couldn't pay that much more. So in that case, it did benefit by having that data. Doesn't mean you're going to keep renting it for that price they want, but at least as your bottom line, you can see that I can't afford to pay that.
I'll kind of echo the same thing there a little bit. We're working a lot more with guys too on like enterprise financial analysis, really trying to figure out that really getting that cost per bushel down, cost per acre, and trying to analyze that, and then trying to find parts of fields that maybe we should be taking out of production. There's programs that could potentially pay you to do that. And so it's kind of a win-win situation. They could be sensitive areas in fields near waterways or stream banks, things like that. So yeah, I think we can add value to the ground by looking for those areas. And then also being able to sit down with landlords. I was actually visiting with a grower here this morning, and that's kind of what he did, is he had his cost of production down really well. And at one point, maybe the landlord should actually be paying him, and so really having that's a hard conversation to have with landlords. They still remember $7 corn. They don't see the $3 corn so much right now. So I think having that information, having your costs really good, and having good solid yield data can really make a case. And I would hope many landlords would at least listen to that to try to make things a little bit easier on you guys to renegotiate some rents possibly. So.
I would agree with both of you. That's been used for our clients very similar, and sometimes it's a piece of information, and this data, it's a great visual you can put before the landlord. It's not just this is what my consultant says, this is what the client says, but it's a good visual to put in front of your landlord, and sometimes that means you walk away and I can't pay that per acre rent you're asking and be profitable. Where can we meet in the middle? But for us as a company, the data has been super useful in terms of zone delineation, soil sampling, variable rates. The more years of data you have, the better, and you start to stack them on top of each other and kind of cut through. Get a really dry year like 2012 and get a really wet year like last year. And you kind of start to delineate some of these zones that are very profitable and that aren't very profitable, that maybe we need to stop farming or do something a little different on and pull some of those inputs away from those acres.
Morning. How's that? A couple questions on planting the headlands later. Do we have some research that kind of says that saving that for later and putting the planter through all that traffic and the ride quality issues, getting it to close and all that, I mean, do we have something that verifies that's a really good train of thought to do that?
So there isn't much research on that, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
other than what we've seen in the fields.
Yep.
What I would say is that as you're going through with that planter, from the seed closing, I don't think that's going to be an issue if you have your closing wheels set right. And ride quality, you're not going to go through your headlands at 12 miles an hour. You're probably, even on a high-speed planter, you're going to still, do more, you're not going to be able to plant those headlands as fast
Right.
because of that ride quality issue.
Right, but just going
But-
with the extra compaction, usually the headlands in our area, they tend to be the bottom end of something somewhere, going through and packing down already a tacky surface and then expecting the planter to effectively open and close and place it isn't a real good bet, in our situation when we come to deal with that.
Like I
And the
said, we got to
next-
try it on the farms. This
Right.
past year, though, we saw big differences on the guys that did their headlands last with the wet subsoil that we
Yeah.
had. We did see positive.
I guess it'd be interesting to actually see, some research on that. It's a hell of an idea, but we got to try it. That's for sure.
Yep.
And the other argument is like we're running a 16-row planter and we come through with a 16-row knifer, side dressing. We're still following our same traffic path, so tractor follows the same tracks, similar characteristics to do the turn. We're still staying in our path where we are stepping on the seat anyhow.
If
You
you're
know.
doing this, if you're doing the same pass,
Right, right,
most guys are not.
right.
Most guys are not following the exact planter
Right.
track. You're always going to be off by a few feet. So,
Right.
but no, I know that's a concern too for the guys that are
Well-
side dressing. You still got the duals and you got the wheels on the.
Right.
The side dressing rig that
right,
you're
or
gonna run
however
over
you're
some
set
corn.
up. Correct, correct.
The idea is to get you guys thinking outside the box. It's a small thing. It's not going to revolutionize your farm because you plant your headlands last, but it's to think
Yeah.
about these little things. But I have not seen the closing issue or the ride quality issue for the guys that have done the headlands last.
Okay.
My question, how many guys in this room have the capability of trying that this spring? Raise your hand. Well, there we go. We just got about a dozen on-farm trials.
Something that was talked about here this morning was, what is the value of even emergence? And, I know you guys are out taking populations and scouting. What normally emerges later? It's those in the wheel tracks, or you're lucky if they do emerge later. So that's one of the benefits I see of doing the headlands last. That's normally, on the headlands, your poor stand count is just because you have so much compaction. Lower yield aside, sometimes it's just a battle to get those seeds out of the ground in the wheel track. So you're kind of alleviating that by doing that, last.
All right. We do have one question here we'd like to ask the group, and it's a three-part question. How do you typically communicate planning progress with customers in season? Why do you feel it is valuable for you to do that? And what adjustments are you often recommending?
Yeah.
All right. In season, with the advent of the cell phone, it's really easy to pick up the phone and call. Text messages are always great. I do a lot, maybe at the end of the day, just shoot a text to somebody, hey, how'd you do today? That kind of thing. Why is it valuable for me? It's good to know what I'm going to show up to that week when I get there, or that day when I get there. Just knowing how far they got. I do a lot of ordering of fertilizer and chemical, whether it's the co-op or an independent spray person or something like that. They kind of ask me to do that. I know what I want to order, so there's no miscommunications there. So to know what's been done to get that ordered for the next day, those are the main things that I use in season. And then, let's say we do get a late year, we're always chatting back and forth about when should we switch from this maturity corn to that maturity corn, or when should we switch from beans to corn to beans, when should we switch from silage to grain or grain to silage, high moisture, all that fun stuff. So it's in-season management of maturities, spraying, fertilizing, that kind of stuff.
I'll echo what Bill says. And, yeah, advent of cell phones now it's made it a lot easier than when I started back in 2000 doing private consulting, and prior to that even. So it is important because, like Bill too, I do a lot of the ordering, making sure fields are sprayed. We do a lot of pre-emergent spraying for my clients, so that's pretty critical. We get that done in a timely fashion. So I need to know when those fields were planted. We're cross-checking, and did you get the same variety in there that we had planned? And working with a lot of dairymen, nothing against dairymen, but their specialty is milking cows and making money from cows. And sometimes cropping is almost a necessary evil. So, they're planting. So then it's sometimes, keep them in the right direction, so to speak. Like Bill, as we're getting later in the season, like last year, we need to be making some switches on hybrids here, making them aware of that, getting in contact with their seed seller, helping facilitate getting that done. And then maybe this will go into a question a little bit later, but as far as like collecting data too, well, I am excited about trying to use Operations Center on a couple guys because, that'll just take one more step out of there of being able to go in there and having that information logged in automatically, so.
It depends on the operator, but we have, guys that will shoot us a text, this is my progress, or an email or phone conversation. Some guys, mail in, stuff if they're not, quite as tech savvy. This is my planning records. These are the planning dates. But it definitely is useful. 99% of our guys are using a pre-emerge, and once the weeds are up, these pre-emerge chemistries don't work well. So as soon as that field is planted, we want the sprayer right behind getting that pre-emerge chemistry on. So that's very useful. And then too, just tracking what's going on in terms of the weather. Planting depth is huge, and a guy might be doing everything correctly, but if it's been dry for a week and that top 1.5 inches is dry, and you're putting that seed into dry ground, it's going to sit there until we get rain, and then you wasted, you wait 7 days for rain. Well, that seed didn't germinate. You lost 7 days to your growing season. So just really tracking where they are, tracking planting depth is very useful.
You guys got all the answers already? No questions? You're just being shy?
So I have a question on fertilizer. There's been a lot of conversation about placing fertilizer versus banding it, kind of the timely injection of fertilizer. Have you guys seen that or been across that at all? Where, versus like an in-furrow situation, you're putting that fertilizer right on the seed, skipping a spot and putting it right back on the seed again. Have you seen any of that across the area?
I haven't had the experience with that yet, but I do got an experience of at one of my growers last year, and albeit this is an older planter, and we were using 2x2 on that planter. And this, for whatever reason, did not work. It's kind of hard to explain. They almost had like spiked closer wheels back in the back there, and they ran a tube back there, and we were just basically dribbling the fertilizer back there. It was 4-10-10, something pretty simple. And that did not work at all. And that's probably where I see my most planter issues last year was we just had really poor fertilizer placement with that system. Now we're going to go back to a completely in-furrow system here on that planter this year. But I haven't seen that. So they're like dropping it every 3 inches down the row. Oh, gotcha. Yep. Versus putting it right on the seed. It's in between the seed placement. I don't have anybody running that right now. You guys?
Yeah, there's a lot of great products out there. I don't have any data on that, but yeah, there's fertilizer that's placed, on both sides of the seed and then right below or in between or right on, depending on the salt solution. I really can't speak to that. I don't know if.
No, I don't have any either to be the third one here to wreck your question, but I did have experience a couple years ago where the in-furrow was surging, so we had a lot of burned seed. So those are other things to think about. Make sure that that's working correctly. But so that was almost the opposite. It was putting 4, 5, 6 gallons right on the seed versus in between it.
I got one. No, I know. Oh, we got one over there.
If you could ask your customers to do one thing differently during the season, besides checking seed more often, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I don't have the answer, but the guys this morning kind of stole my thunder on that one. Joe had kind of sent us a couple of questions, so I had that one in the hopper ready. But just, I think it is important for every farm to try to do some on-farm trials. I know we're all busy. The bigger the farm, sometimes the more busy you are, the more people you have to manage. And it may be something small. Maybe it's no starter. We get that question every year. Does starter work? Does starter not? And I bet you these guys would answer the same. It depends. That's an easy question. But do you have manure? Do you not have manure? Is it late? Is it early? What kind of soil type do you have? All that kind of fun stuff factors into something maybe like starter. But you know your ground. You know your fields. Do some on-farm stuff. You get many salesmen. You get many people calling, stopping on the farm with whatever it is, products, whatever, trying to get on your farm. You're going to know if it works if you use it on your own farm.
Just to second that, not only trying new things and doing on-farm trials, but doing replicated on-farm trials and year-to-year on-farm trials. Sometimes you use a product and it's going to be inconsistent. So just because it didn't work in 2017, sometimes collecting data is a messy thing. So to split a field, to get the yield map in front of the clients, you're not always going to see a 2 to 5 bushel increase on a yield map. You really have to drill down and look at that. And I'm not sure where Matt is, but he gave some good examples of that this morning. 2 to 3 bushel increase between products, but that's something that isn't going to be readily apparent just by looking at a yield map. So it's something where if a guy says, it's split half the field, we need to approach it a little bit differently. We need to be using a weigh-a-wig, and we need to be using some software with more horsepower. Yield maps are very useful, but visually you're not going to pick up on a 2 to 3 bushel yield increase. Most of the products that are advertised, you see the range 5 to 15 bushel. Everyone's going to say they can offer you that, but really 2 to 3 bushel is more common or less than that. So
I kind of struggled with this actually a little bit. I would say, not that guys don't do a good job of field prep, but maybe pay a little more close attention. The good old disc is still pretty popular up in my part of the country. And if I could get rid of every one of those things, that'd be great. I really like what some of these, there's vertical tillage is a pretty wide ranging definition now. There's lots of different pieces of equipment that fit in that term vertical tillage, but most of them do a really nice job of field prep. That, and I think watching your planter depth, again, that goes all the way back to the simple thing of checking seed, but I'll never forget one grower, they had chisel plowed clay ground up by Athens. And granted, we were getting pushed on time and just hit it once with a disc, and I'm watching that poor corn planter go across the field. And them units were probably bouncing 6-8 inches. It was just incredible. I didn't think they could move that far. But miraculously, the seed all came out of the ground. I don't know how it did it, but it was a John Deere planter, so. Yes, exactly. Pizza later. But no, I just, I know it's hard to take the time. The last few springs have really pressured everybody. And, but yeah, I think seed prep and then watching that depth as the season goes on, especially too. Just take the time to make those small adjustments.
Yeah, how and when are you getting planting records of as-planted dates and variety details from your customers? How are you guys utilizing this information, and is there value for you to receive this information in electronic format daily?
I'm getting it as it happens on some growers. I have 3 customers that are hooked with the operation center, and for me, that's awesome. I get to see it the minute they plant it. I have a couple that have a 30-30 or whatever that I have to go and manually extract it off. And then I get some never. For me, it's very valuable, especially for harvest planning, to know when it was planted, what variety was planted, so we know, okay, this group of fields is going to be silage. Let's try to shoot for these group for high moisture, these group for dry, whatever the scenario is. It doesn't have to be instantaneously. It's nice to know. Again, I'll go back to that ordering the fertilizer chemicals. If I know instantly that I have it, it makes it easier to plan my day to get everything ordered, because I'm getting pressure from the co-op that, they want it right away in the morning when they get there, so they know. In fact, they want it the night before so they can plan their next day and have their trucks all loaded and ready to go. So for me, it is really good to have for ordering and planning. And if you get to fall and you don't know what you have planted and you don't know when you planted it, how do you know which field should go for what? That's a big thing for me.
I get everything from, like Bill said, from the Cadillac, from operations center, to somebody handing me a bunch of slips of paper, and I've got to try to go through and cipher out what they wrote down as they were bouncing across the field. And everything in between. Yeah, like I said, it is valuable. Like Bill said, if you don't know what you planted where and when, how can you even evaluate that field or that farm at the end of the season? And with the margins as extremely tight as they are, and honestly, I don't care if corn is $8. You still need to know where you're at. And if you can't, then this is just becoming a hobby. Let's be honest. So yeah, it's valuable because, again, we're doing ordering for custom applicators and stuff, so we need to know what it is. And if there is an issue out in the field and we're out scouting and trying to figure out what's going on out here, we need to know what variety it is and when it was planted too, because that can tell us a lot of things. So it is valuable information.
I would say the same, depending on the grower's level of technical expertise. Some is wireless, but a lot is still just manually downloaded, a thumb drive. And that's cumbersome. It takes time. A lot of times you got to track down where the machine is at, and sometimes the monitor, I took the monitor out there, now it's in another machine, and you're running from one end of the county to the next, or one county or one farm to the next. But data is useful. We're collecting it, and there's money to be made there. It takes time, but it's definitely a tool, and if you have the technology, we should be using it.
All right, any other questions from out there? If not, can we give our, oh, wait, we had one? Sorry. Thanks. Right here in front.
When you tell growers to check their planters in spring for a seed placement, you also tell them to check the fertilizer placement from the seed, left or right?
Absolutely. You know, I got fewer and fewer guys are doing a 2x2 placement, although now it's kind of coming back a little bit, but they're just putting 28 or 32, something like that over there. So, but yeah, that's absolutely, because those things will move, and we certainly don't want to be getting some of those products too close to the seed furrow. So absolutely, that absolute must.
Especially in different soil types. You know, if you've got a lighter soil, you want to make sure that nothing didn't move, or you got it too close to the seed, you're going to burn. Too far away, not do as good a job as you'd like.
Just as much as that too is the closing wheels. You know, we have so many great options out there today, but depending on the soil type, you sometimes can get too aggressive, and if all of a sudden they'll start running in furrow, I don't know if you've seen that, but it almost acts as a rotor tiller, and all of a sudden you're flicking out seeds. And just, yeah, checking alignment, following behind, a lot of that stuff you can catch. And if a guy doesn't have some type of flow system or red ball system, you know, on a 12-year-old planter, it's not uncommon for, you know, 2 of the rows, we're not getting any 2x2 out, and, you know, don't have to worry about burn there, but, you know, that corn is going to be behind for the early part of the growing season and all the way through to maturity. So just the little things that make a big difference.
All right, thanks, guys. So we can get a round of applause for our 3 agronomists here, and thank you for coming. So Steve's going to come up and kind of close us out before we have some lunch.
Yeah, and the best part of this, right? I stand between you and your lunch, so I'm not going to take much of your time. I do want to put a big thank you out to all the customers that traveled quite a distance, and even the guys that live nearby. I've seen some faces it's quite a drive, so I really, really appreciate it, and I thank all the staff. They put some hard work into this. So I'd like to thank the team from Eastern Schnell. I would like to thank all the support staff that helped. Nicole, Heather, thank you very much. I guess would be really nice to the trade show sponsors. Are they in here? Our trade show sponsors, are they in here, or are they out in the other room? Be out in the other room. Well, thank them also. So you guys received some folders, and in your folders there's a website you can go to. It's rands.com, P for P. So that's where you can view all the presentations that were out today. Please feel free to do that. Talk to your ISG team for any questions on any of that. We'll be available from now until 2:30, along with the trade show sponsors. So please stick around after lunch. Visit with us. Any questions you've had about anything you've seen today, please feel free to talk. Don't forget about the $750 coupon. Also, don't forget to take a selfie. If you need help in taking a selfie, I'm one of the ISG guys. I'm sure can help you. So just reach out to us and we'll help you so you can get your free RTK or your JD link. With that being said, thanks again for coming today. We really appreciate you guys having us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.